Mikey B, my guys, we going in tonight talking about the NBA trade rumors. I'm sticking to the Sports Illustrated. I like where they're going about this. And we're going to talk about some of the big names. I mentioned in previous videos, if your team sucks this year and with the big draft, if there's any guy over 30, past his prime, or a guy that has an expiring contract this year needs to be re-signed, he's on the block. There's going to be a lot of moves, I think, that are going to be made, a lot of surprises. Hopefully they don't let me down and things happen. We're going to kind of walk through a couple of these in the 10 minutes and get you through what I think may happen. The big one for me, 76ers. Kyle Lowry is the target. That makes total sense. That is the move to make for the Sixers. Make no qualms about it. The 76ers are having quite a year. You look at their roster, you look at the team and what they're doing. The one piece I said they were missing, I've said it a million times, is the fact that the 76ers just do not have a full-time point guard. That's my biggest issue. Shake Milton has come along well. He's doing his thing, but it's Ben Simmons at the point guard, and that for me is not going to be satisfying for a playoff run. Even with the injuries to Joel Embiid, Dwight Howard is having a tremendous season and filling in the blanks. So he's there as a secondary backup. You got Mr. Tobias Harris is coming of his own, and Ben Simmons is doing his thing near triple-double phenom every night. So they got all the pieces but the point guard, and they have the opportunity to try and get Kyle Lowry. It makes total sense to go out and grab him, maybe a cheaper trade. I don't know if that's possible. Shake Milton, some of the lower guys, get those guys to the cold weather, or actually come to Tampa, because that's where they're playing out for the whole year, and figure it out. I think that's a good move for them. All right, moving on. Top teams. We know about the Nets. I told you about the Nets and getting Drummond. It is critical. I think that's why that one slot is open. If they don't get Drummond, there's a couple other options. We know about D Cousins, right? But there's another option, possibly, even though the numbers won't work out, LaMarcus Aldridge. Why I mention Aldridge? Because I'm hearing talks about Aldridge maybe getting a buyout. See that note there from Sports Illustrated. That would be the best moves, because I really wouldn't trade any money for him. I mean, I wouldn't trade any of my young talent, young bulls for LaMarcus Aldridge right now. There's no situation that it makes sense. He's a slower player. He comes from the older era where it was post up and shoot. Though he has a lot of good attributes from an offensive perspective, I think defensively his footwork is much, much, much slower than the guys at these days, and he's going to get scored on. So I think of him as an offensive weapon coming to any team and not a really defensive presence. But back to Drummond. Drummond has a couple slots where he can go into. They talk about the possibility of Drummond going to the Knicks, Drummond going to the Nets. And the one last team, I was thinking about this the other night, is definitely the Mavericks. Mavericks truly need a big, and they need it badly. All right. I know they got Willie Cauley-Stein. He's just not tough enough. This guy is a double-double machine. However, where they lose at is they lose the flexibility of being able to shoot around and stretch the floor. Once Drummond's on the line, it's over, right? Even though he has the capability and never developed in the NBA. So for me, Drummond to the Mavericks makes total sense. However, be advised, the offense, the lanes will get clogged up, because Mr. Drummond, again, is the guy that's inside focus, even though he does have some handle and agility on the outside if you've never seen him play before. Okay. Now, as we continue through, let's look at the top storylines and go through what SI has on the field in the WAP. And we talked 35-year-old LaMarcus Aldridge. All right. So many teams. Right? So many teams. All right. It has to be a buyout, though. It has to be a buyout. All right. I think the Blazers do make sense as a big veteran role. The Mavericks coming to mind again. Another guy, another team there. But what about I hate to say it. All right. I hate to say it. There's a team called Miami Heat. I don't see a problem with adding him there, right? Boston needs some help at the 4. There's several teams, if he's bought out, where it makes sense to get this kid. And I know he's 35, but there's still opportunity, and I think there's some moves that can be made if he's bought out. All right. Celtics have been focused on Harrison Barnes. Sorry, my dudes, that's fake news. They're also talking about Jeremy Grant. I mean, come on. They got Brown. They got they got their big two at the shooting guard and Tatum at the small forward position. Why would they look at bringing in Harrison Barnes, another small forward? They're so stacked with those type of players. I see no news in that. I see Harrison Barnes staying put with the Sacramento Kings and them trying to make an impact, unless they're trying to do the rebuild now and get Kuminga in the draft, which would make sense, and let Mr. Harrison Barnes go because they're still in the playoff hunt. Orlando, okay? With only Isaac and Markelle Fultz is untouchable, both with big ACL injuries, they're bringing back. This is a team that I would love to see something happen. But the big thing for me here is Aaron Gordon. I think if Aaron Gordon gets a change of scenes with a true point guard, it's going to be scary. Let me throw a team out there that no one's thinking about, okay? I like Aaron Gordon. They're the number one team to me right now in the West. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship. We know about the Clippers and the Lakers and the experience. But the Phoenix Suns, if they could get Aaron Gordon on the cheap, would make total sense, especially with Chris Paul. That would give them the athleticism that I see them lacking at some of their positions. I certainly like Aaron going there, all right? Is there any other team that could utilize Aaron Gordon's skill set? A guy that is developed an all-around game, never has been given the opportunity to truly greenlight what he can do on the floor. But think of him as an 18, 8, and 8 type of guy who can do it all. Who's another team, right? We know that the Nets can't get him. We know the Knicks are not going to play him. But what about Charlotte? What about the Charlotte Hornets? I know there's Miles Bridges. I love him. I said he was a superstar. What about another wingman for LaMelo Ball to pass to? Interesting there. Aaron Gordon to the Hornets. I think that also makes sense. Again, the Magic should keep him, but if they're going to trade him, move him to one of those teams, give up some draft picks, and try to build up. But the Aaron Gordon situation looks scary. Vucevic, if he moves, wow. I mean, it's going to be, especially on the East, any team. This is Vucevic's perfect destination is the Boston Celtics. Without a doubt for me, that is a team that needs him immediately. If they're in the running for a center, that's the guy they need to go get and try to make themselves solidify. He's been doing so much work in Orlando and really hasn't benefited them. Kyle Lowry, we talked about him going to the 76ers. Can he fill that puzzle piece? Can they make the move at 34 years old? I wouldn't risk it. I told him to go get Dennis Smith Jr., the Sixers that is, and it never happened. And now he's starting to ball out in Detroit. Now, next up, Clippers add a point guard. I don't know why they keep talking about that and disrespecting Reggie Jackson, but I feel as though they had probably guard heavy, which means shooting guards in mind state, but size of a point guard. And I think they have a little bit too much of that. I don't see a reason why they would try to go and get another point guard on this team. I think they're good there. However, inside, Drummond was another thought process there signing, and we have some other folks on the call, listening in. There's different moves they can make right now that I think will give them an opportunity, but I do not like the talk of trading my man at this time because I just don't think it makes sense. Point guard position, Reggie Jackson's there. Play him. Let him facilitate. Houston, everybody's talking about the PJ Tucker movement and Oladipo. Will they move? We shall see. We see what they're doing without John Wall, but what a big exclamation point to steal Kevin Porter Jr. I warned you guys, he's a dangerous talent, and it looks like he's coming of his own and having the green light on his squad. Al Horford, big dude, another big guy from the old era. Don't really like him. If he's willing to take a bench role, I don't think there's an issue with Al Horford joining some team in the Eastern Conference. I think that's his best opportunity. The Knicks, okay, who are they going to move? They just acquired Derrick Jones Jr., not sure. All right, so I think they're good. Is Michael Porter Jr. untouchable for the Nuggets? I'm not going there, but You see all the talk. They lost Jeremy Grant last year. Could this be a potential landing spot for Aaron Gordon, even though they're clawed with Bobo and Mike Porter Jr.? I'm not sure, but that's an interesting play if they can work out the salaries, all right? Those are some of the bigger newses from around the freaking world in NBA. And I think the most scenic route that we're going to see is essentially teams are going to wait for the buyouts. And if there's no big buyout, they're going to keep their teams as is. But the biggest movements are Drummond, Aldridge, and then we figure out what happens, of course, with my guy. My guy, as I mentioned it, Aaron Gordon from the Orlando Magic, and see if a move is made there. John Collins is another name that's thrown out there. Not sure if he moves, but right now it's Gordon. We're talking about this guy as potential big name mover on a squad, and if he gets the opportunity, I think he could be delicious. I'm gonna sign off here, Step Back Champions, going over the trades and what could happen. This is just the first look. We're gonna have more new news through April the 15th to see who moves where. I'm out. Peace.